It's never too early to start drinking and crying, and I think Florida Gator fans are about ready to pop open the bubbly and enjoy the tears flowing down their face after seeing what they're going to go through in 2024. Let's talk about the Gator schedule in the SEC come next season. If you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, plus coaching searches, the transfer portal, national championship status, and a bunch of other nonsense, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the future of the Gators going into year 3 of the Billy Napier era. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, your best of bros, the drunk dude passed out in a Waffle House parking lot about this channel, Gators fans and college football aficionados everywhere, because we're on the race to 1,000 and we're like this close. So I'm really hoping we can get there before Christmas. Then we're going to go to 5,000, then 10,000, then 100,000. And ladies and gentlemen, I think you know at this point we are going to get there. So jump on in while the water's fine. Continue to give me a follow on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. I call it Twitter. Sorry, Elon. You can't make me call it X. That way, the conversation never stops flowing. Florida just basically got handed a prison sentence. That's the only way that you can put their 2024 schedule. And it doesn't get easier down the stretch. But the part that I think a lot of people aren't understanding is it's going to be challenging from the jump. This is not one of those schedules where you look on paper and say, okay, well, if we get through this part, then we can afford to get a few losses on the schedule and still be fine and be bowl eligible. No, it's a juggernaut from the very get-go. I mean, we're talking just about scheduling with upside and potential. If all these teams find the right players, primarily at quarterback, and also you got to look at adding in names in the offensive and defensive line, it's going to be almost impossible to say where you immediately spot a win outside of, say, Samford. So you begin the season at home. You're starting off against Miami. Miami's going to be better. Hate to break it to you, but they are. Then you play Samford, so we'll give you that win. Texas A&M comes to town September 14th, and then you're on the road for the first time against Mississippi State. Then you get to come back home and play UCF. They're improving, not saying they're great by any means, but they are going to get better because they have the Big 12 brand next to their name. Then you take on Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. You get to go home against Kentucky, and then you get your bye week. And then comes where the death sentence has already been implemented, and you're walking down death row, and you're about ready to get strapped in, and they're ready to fire the lethal injection inside you. That's what you have to end the season. Neutral site location against Georgia. Naturally, that was never going to change. Then you get to travel to Texas in Austin. Home games against LSU, a probably improved LSU team. Ole Miss, they're not going to slow down. And then you close out the season in Tallahassee against Florida State. So just bear with me for a second. We're talking about teams that could see improvements in a multitude of areas. Tennessee, they're going to be big in the transfer portal. Texas, they're going to be, massive in the transfer portal. Texas A&M, they're going out of their way and losing a bunch of talent, but as the transfer portal taketh, it giveth. And they have landed 2 premier names from the group of 5 level. I can promise you they're going to continue to add in more names. UCF, I don't know if many people saw, but there's always a Gus Malzahn special dialing up somewhere. I don't know if you've ever watched a moment of Gus Malzahn football, but whether it come in early September or late November, there's a game where Gus Malzahn's going to pull away and win by double digits, and people are going to be like, what the hell? That happened? Yeah, it's called a Gus Malzahn special. Go ask about a team like Oklahoma State, what happened to them, because now they're sitting at 9-4 after losing to UCF in year 1 in Orlando. So they're going to be better. I don't think you can rule out Kentucky. Kentucky, they have crushed the transfer portal so far. I mean, you look at the names that were added in, they're baseline foundational structure pieces. And then with the recruiting class that's going to finish top 25, now we're talking about Kentucky garnering 9-3 buzz or even 10-2 buzz. So they could be next year's Missouri team. That's the way I view them. They really could, especially with what they've added in so far and what they're continuing to add in. But then you also got to look at the end of the schedule and imagine if the season was played this year. So just picture this for a second. You're facing off against 2 teams that potentially could be in a playoff and 5 teams that absolutely would have an argument to be in a 12-team playoff to close out your season. That's on top of facing off against improving teams and teams that could end up being better than you. That's what Florida's dealt with. So anybody out there that says Florida's going to have it easy next season, I politely ask you, go ahead and hand me the drink. You do not need to be driving. You need to go home and take a nap because there's no other way around it. Florida might have the toughest conference schedule I've ever seen in my entire life. And also, they may just have the toughest schedule in college football, period. Because you don't know what these other teams are going to be. You think that Texas A&M could regress. You think that UCF could be a Big 12 roster. You think that Tennessee might have some growing pains, especially with the brand new quarterback leading the charge. And you think Kentucky could be bad. But you know Texas is going to be prepared. You know Georgia's going to be ready. You know Ole Miss, with what they're returning talent-wise, should be well-equipped to hold their own. Oh, and you know Florida State, they're pretty pissed off at college football playoff committees. They're going to do everything in their power to guarantee their spot next season. And this is where it also comes down to Billy Napier. So for me, it's going to be very challenging to judge what Billy does next year, just because the schedule in itself is already a madhouse, and I don't think anybody wants to play it. But also, what if you do play well? Like, let's just say next season you go 6-6. 6-6 with that schedule would be the equivalent of going 10-2 in most Group of 5 conferences. It'd be going 9-3 in the Big 12 or the ACC. And so this is where the construct and the infrastructure of what we have with the knowledge of understanding recency bias is a factor. If Billy Napier leads your team to a bowl game next season with this schedule, with this daunting task of going through the SEC, I politely say you have your guy. You have the right coach, because I can tell you this much. Going through the SEC next season, I don't know how many teams are going to go unscathed. I don't know if anybody's going to go unscathed. Alabama has to take on Georgia. One of those two is taking an L in the process. Texas has to go face off against Georgia. One of them's taking an L in the process. LSU is still taking on teams like Texas A&M. They're going to be facing off against a Florida roster. I'm pretty sure that they're also playing Texas. Like, they're taking some L's. So if you go 6-6 during that span, and let's just say you beat up on the teams ahead of you. So you do beat Miami, and you do beat Texas A&M, and you lose to Kentucky, but you beat Tennessee once again, and you beat Samford. So we got 5 wins to start the year. And let's say you go 2-3 in that process down the stretch. So you beat Florida State, and we'll go you beat on Georgia. Let's just say that those two things happen. Is 7-5 not good enough for Florida fans? Because in my opinion, that's the equivalent of going 11-1 for some conferences. That's the equivalent of being able to say, we have our foundation in place, and now it's about adding in those last pieces. Florida has been riddled through the transfer portal. And I can tell you this much, the other main concern right now is what happens to them on the recruiting trail. Because the main reason why a lot of people were giving Billy Napier the benefit of the doubt is because of what he had coming in for 2024. But slowly but surely, I tell you this all the time, until the ink is dry and until the paper is turned in, you are a free agent. You can go anywhere you want. You can meet with any coach. You can meet with any university. And then when early signing period comes, which, by the way, we need to get rid of that term. This is the now new National Signing Day, and then there's late signing day. That comes in February. I'm just going to go ahead and just start calling it that because I have to. But on that day, you could flip from Florida to Miami, or Florida to Florida State, or Florida to LSU. And that's where a guy like Billy Napier is in a lot of trouble. I mean, you're going to have a quarterback in DJ Lagway that I think a lot of people are excited for down in Gainesville, but you got to be able to build. And what you're losing via the transfer portal, what you're losing via the NFL draft with guys like Keith Pearsall, you're in a lot of trouble. So 7-5 with a roster that could be riddled with talent that is no longer coming to Gainesville, and talent that may not be at the same level as what it was this past year, is actual real growth and real progress. So I think when a lot of people look at Florida's schedule next season, yes, it's a juggernaut. Absolutely. You would be foolish to think that anybody wants to play that schedule. You can ask Alabama. You can ask Georgia, LSU, the teams that we put on a pedestal at the SEC pedigree. You could ask them to play that schedule, and most of them would probably be shaking in their boots just a little bit. They'd feel confident because of their programs that are meant to go far and have a certain persona about them. But don't think for 1 second, not even the great Nick Saban or Kirby Smart sitting there going, I do not envy Georgia. I do not envy Florida. I do not envy what Florida has to go through. So just never take advantage of what you know of what your record says you are. That's the biggest lie in college football out there. Nobody knows what their record is, and the record won't define what type of team you are. Because a 7-5 Florida roster is definitely better than a 7-5 team from the ACC or from the Big 12 or from the Mountain West. And honestly, this is where we're going to have a lot of problems moving forward when it comes to the college football playoff appearance. You can't justifiably say that a 9-3 Florida team with this schedule is worse off than some teams that are 11-1 in other conferences, but will get the opportunity to play for a national championship. We're going down a dark road in the world of college football. It's promising and it has a lot of potential, but it also has a lot of hiccups along the way with it.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.